We just give you the unvarnished proof and you make it.
Yeah, let it sit in the room.
Yeah.
You know, let you look at it for a little bit and say, you know what, I could do something with that. Some of the things that you think you're doing that are really good for the company are actually super detrimental. And some of the things that are detrimental are actually super good. And you just need that different perspective to help you get there.
When's the last time you were at McDonald's and you had a phenomenal conversation with the person taking your order? Or you walked away going, oh my gosh, that changed my life. Like,
or just had the right order in your bag. Like, I mean, just that alone. Like, welcome back. Today, part 2 of my interview with Sam Bradford and Tracy Ann Maines, both members of my team overseeing change management and culture. Let's get right to it.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the process fixer. Help you see the bigger picture. Derek Maines is the elixir. Cut and waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process, so for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.
Listen, I love the word why. I think in Japanese management, the 5 whys is like one of the core fundamentals, right? But why is a big question a lot of kids ask, and that's because they're really trying to understand the world. You know, they're trying to truly comprehend what's happening. I think you hear why a lot from 2-year-old kids. You hear it a lot from people that do Kaizen and Six Sigma and Lean. I think in change. I think the other place you see it a lot is with new employees. Because for the first 90 days, employees ask why a lot because they're trying to understand the world that they're coming into. The problem is that after that 90 days, if they're still asking why, we as leaders are usually like, gotta go. Like, this person's questioning a lot of things. We got to move them out the door. So I think it's so important when somebody's new in the organization to really pay attention to the whys they're asking, or you have to get a different perspective. And this is what I think we're really good at the Process Fixer, is stepping in and walking around with you and going, why are you doing that? They're like, well, because oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You know, why is your location here, but your customers are 60 miles away and you drive back and forth all day long every day? Oh, that's a good question. Why do we do that? You know, I think we put up these sort of things that we believe are foundational beliefs, but sometimes we have to go and break shit and build shit, right? We have to break that down. So let's talk a little bit about why. Why is why so important?
Because without it, there's confusion. Like, why is the purpose for your, Simon Sinek, right? Another one, call me anytime you want.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek, start with a why. Like, very, very simple. He has that target that he has. If you lead with the why, the how and the what follow. You know, I tell the story in some of my presentations that when I was about 8 years old, we were at a lake outside of my hometown called Keystone Lake, and we're all hanging out, having a good time, and lifeguards come running down. There's a small child missing. We need everyone stand up, link arms, start walking into the lake, right? So even as an 8-year-old, I'm like, this is probably not going to be a good thing. But everybody did, immediate, no question. So, right, that's Simon Sinek approach of why. They had a vision. We have a vision. We need to save a child. Like, yeah, there could be a literal death here. Like, we have a purpose. We're united in it. We have that vision. It's a very clear vision, right? Very concise, very clear. Had the lifeguards kind of walked up and said, hey, everybody, we want you to stand up, go shoulder to shoulder, link arms, and just start walking into the lake. We would have been like, I got a sandwich I'm eating, you know, and I'm building a sandcastle down here. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a small child missing. Like, it's just a different view. You're giving people, you start with the why. You're giving people a vision. You're giving people a purpose. And that's why I always say visions need to be very clear, very concise, very repeatable, very consistent. But that, oh, and by the way, the child was fine. They were sitting at the wrong picnic table.
You did make the mistake one time and didn't tell them what happened to the kid. And then afterwards, people were like following up. I was like, what's the kid?
What happened to the kid?
I was a little concerned about the kid. It's like, oh, forgot to mention that. No, but I think it is really important. How about in the work that you've done? You know, the why is a really important thing. Why are people why are people sitting in that line for an hour and a half to get a Dutch Brothers coffee?
Right. It's that human connection. And I think it's so cool is because like the work that we get to do with the Process Fixer is to eliminate waste, eliminate all these things, the repetitiveness of work that people are doing over and over and over that is mindless and then freeing up space to actually have human connection. Yeah. And it's like, when's the last time you went to a quick service restaurant and they didn't slam the window shut as soon as they took your order, or they gave you your stuff and boom, it's like, there's this moment where we captured, there's a person who's sitting here, and what if we just engaged with them? What if we just got to know them better and got to connect with them? And I think so many times reasons that businesses don't ask why is because they're just they, like you said, they have their head down. They're just focused on the work that has to be done. They're not focused on what is. And that's where the why really brings out is curiosity. And I could tell you story after story that gives me chills to this day of life impacting conversations that happen at a fast service restaurant. You know what I mean? Like I would tell our people again all the time, when's the last time you were at McDonald's and you had a phenomenal conversation with the person taking your order? Or you walked away going, oh my gosh, that changed my life. Like,
or just had the right order in your bag. Like, I mean, just that alone, like you pull out and you're like, okay, 9 filet fish sandwiches. Like I ordered a salad. I don't know how I got this, but you're so right. And I think that brand loyalty, that's where it comes from. You know, it comes from, McDonald's for me as a kid, that was like a big treat. Like that was the only fast food we had in town that my parents couldn't afford it. It was only when my grandparents came to town that we went and got our hamburger, French fries, and a small Coke. Like that was a big deal. So there is some loyalty there, even though I don't eat a lot of fast food. You know, there's some, I don't know what's the right word, like the reminiscence, you know, there's some like nostalgia with it. But I think you can build that into an experience with a customer by that pattern interrupt, right? We talked about this in another podcast earlier today. This pattern interruption thing is so big because if I ask you, you know, hey, tell me about your day yesterday. You're like, I went to work and drove. But if there was a pattern interruption of any sort, hey, you know what? I went through Dutch Brothers and just had such a great conversation with that broista. You know, that's a memorable event. And you remember that. You think back 5 years later and you still remember that. But yeah, I think it's really about that. And I want to talk about a couple of these other points.
Let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
I think the why is so important because without it, you have to have a very strong level of trust established. You know, I think back to the card you got me when we first started dating. It's a green frog in a plane. And it's like, don't ask questions, don't ask why, just get in. Yeah. Right. And a lot of times I think we have in our businesses, our managers, our leaders fly through in that plane. You're like, don't ask questions, just get in. And I'm like, do you know how to fly a plane? Like, no, I have a lot of questions. Stayed
at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But you know, some of that is just about capacity because we're so busy that when you ask me why, I'm like, we had this happen this morning with somebody else that we're getting ready to hire. Oh, yeah. And you're like, but you're not telling me what you need, right? You're telling me all of these tasks randomly that you need. And I'm like, no, what I need is 5 hours a week. I need somebody that can rescue 5 hours a week of my time. And you were like, oh my God, we need to hire you somebody right away.
Well, I just said that makes sense now. I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I told you the why, right? Because I need to get 5 hours of my week back.
Before you were telling me the what.
I was telling you the what. And I'm like, I just need somebody to manage my like calendar. And you're like, but are we going to have full-time work for them? And I'm like, to me, it doesn't matter. If hiring somebody can get me 5 hours of my week back and I can dedicate that 5 hours to better business development, better customer relationships, better outcomes for our customers, it'll be worth that in spades 10 times over. But I really do think that's a really important piece. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of these other points that we are like fundamentals to us internally. One of them is perspectives, not periscopes. And I think it's such an interesting point when you say it to people, because at first they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, yeah, you know what? I only see in part and know in part. And I'm looking at my business. I'm looking at everything that I do on a daily basis through this lens, right? Through this one little piece. And I'm missing everything else. I'm so impressed by the James Webb Space Telescope. And I love physics and I love astrology and cosmology, not astrology. Cosmology. Cosmetology, yeah. Not a big cosmetologist. As our makeup gal sits in the corner laughing like, that's pretty good. I'm not a cosmetologist. But I love that when they first launched the James Webb Space Telescope a year ago, they pointed it to a blank space in the sky. One space in the sky that they said was like holding up one grain of sand to the entire night sky. And they pointed the telescope at that point and they found 40,000 galaxies. And it's like, whoa, We see in part, like we do not see the whole picture. And I think what perspectives, not periscopes, means is that no matter who you are or where you are in your organization, you are not seeing every perspective. And you really need other people to come in and walk around, do that Gemba walk and go, wait a second, I need to tell you the truth. And the truth is not maybe what you want to know or see and expect. But let me tell you what's actually happening here. Some of the things that you think you're doing that are really good for the company are actually super detrimental. And some of the things that are detrimental are actually super good. And you just need that different perspective to help you get there.
Yeah. Sometimes when you do the Gemba walk, you are that fresh perspective. You know, going back to why are you guys carrying 50-pound batteries across a giant warehouse floor? Well, hustle culture.
Yeah,
well,
we had a
where
culture.
you need to get rid of that hustle culture. We need to get you some carts.
Yep.
What do you always say about in like 800 BC, man invented
I
wheel?
remember I stood up and so the story goes that it was this company and we did some consulting for them and they had a COO that left and I stepped in to try to help. And I noticed that everybody was carrying all these big, heavy packages around. And I said, you know what? Why don't you guys use carts? And they're like, we're not allowed to have carts here. So the previous leadership felt that it wasn't a good look. Like it was lazy to put things on carts and move them around. So we have to carry these big, heavy things all around, all over the place, 50, 100 times a day. And I thought about it overnight and I bought some carts and I came in and I said like 25,000 years ago, man discovered the wheel. Today, it is coming to this operation. We're going to bring it into place. We're going to get carts. And the funny thing is I understand that old school mentality that he's like hustle culture. And I want to see people move in. And if you can't lift 50 pounds, I don't need you here. I only want young, spry people and this whole entire thing. But the reality is what he wasn't seeing, and I saw it because I was measuring, is the level of production on their line between 6 a.m. and about 11 o'clock was pretty good. After lunch, it was like a third. Why? Because everybody was exhausted, working in the 120-degree heat, carrying, even though it's a 50-pound package and these guys are 25 years old, you do that 40, 50 times and you're like, you know what? I'm just drained, man. And the whole operation slowed significantly. So by bringing them carts, I made them lazy. If that COO is listening, I'm sure he would say I made him lazy. But I also got 543% more production off that line than he did in about 3 weeks. So not just that, there's lots of other things we did too, but the same amount of people were producing, 543% more on the same operation. So tell me, did my method work better or did his method work better? If it's all about production, and on top of that, people didn't leave exhausted. They didn't leave, looking like they were, could run through a dryer with a bunch of rocks at the end of the day. They had a great work experience.
It makes me just think that like so many times with these businesses, they get married to their ideas, right? And they're so in love with their ideas. They're just theirs. It's almost like their baby, like, oh, it's so beautiful. And sometimes that other perspective, it comes in with that curiosity of like, why this or why that? What if we tried this differently? And it just gives them that space to be like, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. Like maybe this, and that little shift, I'm sure it not only boosted production, morale, like it probably lessened injuries of these 100%. Guys lifting with their backs and carrying all this heavy stuff. It's just so many times what people need is perspective. Yeah. They just need a different set of eyes and a different mind to look at it and go, why are we doing it that way? Yeah. Well, it's because the CEO, when he did it back in the 50s, started it like this. And it's like,
and I mean, that production line was really interesting because before that, everybody that worked there was like under 30. And then management always complained, why can't we get skilled, experienced mechanics on our line? Well, hello, you can't get skilled, experienced mechanics on the line because the first day they're there and they have to move 5 of these packages. They're like, this is stupid. I'm not working for this. When I left, most of our guys were like over 50, extremely experienced, extremely good, high quality. They knew how to handle their tools. They knew how to handle the workload. They were much more mature. They didn't do the storming out when they got upset with something, right? They knew how to have those conversations. And so it just improved the whole experience of the company by just changing, by finding the wheel, right? By inventing the wheel for them. And I think it is really important. And I think, we talk about wheels in the stone, right? That where it came from. So that's going to bring me to my next one here, which is this concept of being the stone. And, sometimes it can be tough in the type of work that we do, because sometimes the things that we uncover, we've had it happen a couple of times where, where we've uncovered things and executives have said, we don't want to know that. Like, we would rather not know. We talked about an instance here recently where it's like, well, here's a number. We need to talk about this number. And CEO's like, I don't want to know that number. I would prefer not to know it, because if I know it, then I have to take responsibility for it. So it's better if I don't. The reality is this. We all think that CEOs have all their shit together. They're just people, right? And they know that they're strong at some things and weak at other things. So many times we're put into this position where we have to be the stone. We have to just drop the pebble in the right depth of water when it's just still enough, and just hope that those ripples sort of, work out through the organization and transform things for us. And
well, I don't actually think we hope. I think we plan that out. Like
we're very deliberate.
Yeah, I wanted to back that one up a little bit, because I think when you're going to drop the stone, and you're almost the hand that drops the stone, but when that stone hits, whatever that is, you and the team that you're working with at the customer. And that's why I said you do such a good job of baking change management, change leadership into what you do, because you've already consulted them. You've already asked them questions. So this ripple is the people that it's going to affect. This one is maybe a process. This one is maybe payroll is affected. This one out here might be, another role. But I think that you don't hope for anything. You have planned that to the best of your ability and the best of the team's ability.
I think sometimes too, and it brings me to the next point of this concept of unvarnished truth that we talk about. Sometimes, if I polish it up too much and give it to you, and you feel like I'm trying to shove it down your throat, right? But instead, sometimes you have to say, look, Bob, or Sam, or whoever it is, here's the data. And what that means is that we spend, we're looking for more profit in our organization, and we spend X amount of dollars in meetings, or we spend X amount of dollars filing reports, or we spend X amount of dollars putting in the information into 4 different systems. And you can see from the data how much we would recover from that. What do you think we should do? And that's really about delivering this unvarnished, and not saying you need to do this. Sometimes clients want us to do that. They want us to say, tell me what to do, because nobody else is telling me. So be that voice. But sometimes it's better to deliver the ingredients and let them make the meal. It's like the parboiled rice, you have the elements there, and they can sort of put it together. They can crack the egg and add it to the mixture and feel like they're the ones that did it. But I think it really is important. And it is about being the stone in that. It's about being dropped in and creating the ripples, but maybe not making the change ourselves.
But you also don't do any of that until you build, like you ask the why, right?
Yes.
You do the Gemba walk. You go and you see, go see for yourself. That's what Gemba is, right? And then you build on that with understanding the interconnectedness of how everything works together. And that's why I say you already know what those ripples are going to be, or you try to understand it because you've done that interconnectedness part, and then you go into being defiant. And defiant isn't just like belligerence or anything. It was like looking at things from a different way, a different perspective, a different viewpoint. How can it be done better? Because you're not that company that's still in the 1950s. You're fresh. You're that fresh eyes. Then you can go in and you can say, based on all of this foundation that we've built, here's the unvarnished truth that we're going to give to you. And unvarnished is such a great word because, as you say, we didn't pick the varnish color for you. We didn't, is it shellac, not shellac? Yeah. Is it waterproof, not? We just give you the unvarnished proof and you make it.
Yeah, let it sit in the room.
Yeah.
Let you look at it for a little bit and say, you know what, I could do something with that. Like if I took our perspective as a business and took that and applied it, I think it's really important. I would say a lot of times, in closing this out, I think so many times we hear from CEOs that are frustrated. And a lot of times when I'm talking to them, I'm like, if you're frustrated, imagine how they feel. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not getting what I want out of this. We're not getting the right profits. We're not getting, and I'm like, frustration is not usually a feeling that you're usually the last one to feel it, not the first one. So if you're feeling it, I guarantee you it flows the whole way down through the organization, down to the frontline interns, everybody else that are confused and frustrated. And if you just step back and allow that to sort of sink in. And you say to yourself, you know what? I need a third party perspective. I need somebody else who's an expert. And this is one thing that we're good with our team. Like you talked about Sam. I mean, we brought Sam in because he has a totally different perspective. So we're not just a consulting firm that comes in and gives you one new perspective. We try to break that thing down in as many perspectives as possible. And as you know, we hire so many other consultants for so many different things. And we have one here with us that we're going to be talking to right after this. It's about getting as many perspectives as possible from very unique places, you know, from a Dutch Brothers perspective, from a COO's perspective, from an enterprise software change and project management. Brown on our team. I mean, this is a guy that was on Shark Tank and turned down $10 million when he was in his early 20s. He has a little bit of a perspective on business. You know, when you have a $100 million valuation on your startup before it launches out into the world, you have a very unique perspective. So we're constantly trying to bring as many of those perspectives together for you and then deliver results for you that are data-driven, that says, here's what the data says. And based upon 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 perspectives, here's what we're believing is happening here. But here it is, unvarnished, unfinished. Here's the sandpaper, here's the paint. Figure out how this fits in your business. And then we can help you with that because we've got the project management.
I also think too, CEOs, we talk about frustration. We have that diagnostic tool that we give out.
Oh, that's so good.
So frustration is like, they don't feel like they have the resources, the ability, the knowledge that's missing. So they get frustrated. But a lot of times CEOs have so many balls in the air and they have to prioritize. So I think most of the CEOs we work with, CEOs we know personally, they know what they're really good at and they know where they need help. So they bring those resources in, so when they start feeling that frustration, they're like, why am I feeling this? What am I missing? So they bring in the people who will give them, do all that, do the analysis and end up with the unvarnished truth. Then they have a decision to make, you know, from that point on. But all that work has been done consulting people throughout the organization, et cetera, et cetera. So.
I do think it's really important though to note, and having been a CEO and a COO and worked inside organizations like this, there's one group of people that will never tell you the truth. That is people that get a paycheck from your company. They can't. They can never truly tell you. If you're a CEO, they can't tell you the truth because your name's on the paycheck. You're signing the paycheck. They can only give you as much truth as you're willing to accept. And sometimes you do need that, you know, that pattern interruptions from somebody outside the business that you can confide in and say, look, my people are saying that this is not possible. Maybe that's a restriction that I've put in place because I've told them in the past that things aren't possible. Maybe I've built an environment and I've created this bias that they believe these things are impossible. But can you bring a team in of people that look at it and tell me, is it impossible? Because it might not be. And I'm okay with that. And I'm not going to blame my people for that. I'm just going to say to them and say to myself, what did I do to create an environment where you didn't believe? And that's, I think, what we do a lot of times. We provide that really different perspective that allows you to really see your business in a different light. And I think for the most part, it's usually pretty positive. You know, we had a great meeting this morning with an incredible CEO and executive team, you know, that were here. We were recording with them and they knew something was wrong. And they also knew that they couldn't diagnose it. They couldn't go to WebMD and type in like, why do we feel like things aren't working very efficiently here in our business? We know something's wrong. So what did they do? They hired experts. And we came in and we sat there with stopwatches and video recorders and we watched hours and hours and hours of work.
And they knew they couldn't
scale. And they knew they were limited. They knew it was the limiting factor to the business. They would never be able to grow the business like it was because there was just too much pain, too much frustration. So that's what I'm excited about the work that we do because we really do, like, I do have this incredibly high level of logic and a low level on the scale of empathy. And I think what's great about you two running the change, you know, side of this business is you both are empaths. So you both can really relate to that and you can balance out my energy, which is needed sometimes for sure. But thank you both. This was awesome.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the process fix to help you see the bigger picture. Derek Maines is the elixir, cut and waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process, so for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.